Hey everybody, I'm Jody Ganzik, and this is the continuation of the February 2019 Smart Home Q&A right here on Smarter Home Life. I broke it out this month because, for last month, it's March now, but I broke it out because it's a ton of information on two great topics. The first one was security of devices that connect to the cloud, all your IoT devices, security cameras, smart home, little gadgets, and things like that. And James had submitted a comment on the WiseCam review about how secure are these things? They're connecting to the cloud. Is this a safe thing to do? Is it okay? What about privacy? And so I kind of went down the rabbit hole of that entire topic. And trust me, I could have gone on for another half an hour. So this one, prompted by a question from Daniel, who wrote in at smarterhomehelp.com. Go to that form, submit it, I'll answer your questions, and the most interesting ones wind up on these shows, or check the box for a consultation, and we can chat in real time about your smart home challenges. So this time it's... Here, I'll make the title fun. To hub or not to hub? That is the question. And really, it was the question of, do I need a hub? He was considering using the Almond hub by Securify. It's kind of a combination smart Wi-Fi router and part smart home hub as well. This question comes up on a regular basis. Do I need a smart home hub? What does it do? Which one should I get? Why should I bother with it? You know, all these questions. I covered it in the Getting Started series last year, but I thought it would be, I can't even talk. I've done this 5 times, I feel like. This would be a great topic for a Q&A. So here's part 2, to hub or not to hub. That is the question. I'm going to try to break this out to the cloud and not the cloud. The problem is, of course, this modern era of the smart home compared to, say, 5 years ago when things were simpler, when this channel started, it's confusing as hell these days. It really is. Some hubs kind of use the cloud, some don't. Amazon and Google, of course, famously now have kind of cloud-based hubs because they've gotten into the smart home with their smart speaker devices. But is it the smart speaker or is it the cloud? Let's say you're jumping into the smart home because you bought a couple of things. You've got a smart light bulb, you've got a smart thermostat. Let's say it's Nest and Philips Hue. Nest, when they got started and really started pushing into the smart home, they started working with various manufacturers. So your Nest thermostat now, of course, can, depending on the permissions that you set up and if you allow it to understand if you're home or not, of course, it makes sense that, well, if you're not home, turn up lower the temperature of your heating system in the winter. When you come back, raise it, so forth and so on. So it makes sense, all right, if we know that you're leaving and coming back, maybe we could turn some lights on automatically for you or turn some lights off automatically. So Nest and certain other products work directly with other products. It's not really a hub, but it's just connectivity. You link the accounts up and you tell it, okay, sure, turn my lights off or change the temperature, obviously, or do something else, maybe unlock the front door or lock the front door. It's not really a hub. It's just connecting back and forth and making your life a little bit simpler. But if you want to orchestrate things a little bit beyond that, you have to go with something like a real smart home hub. But if you don't want to buy something, you can get away with using an app. That would allow you to do a little bit more than just cross-linking these devices and having them kind of talk to each other. So apps and services like IFTTT, Yonomi, Stringify, and Yeti all let you do that. They have their own individual business models. Usually it's because they're charging the companies that they work with to be on their platform, or they sell some other products and services. IFTTT has been around the longest, and the concept is triggers. So you create these little applets, or used to call them recipes. Anyways, the concept is if this happens, then do this other thing. So you connect up your different devices by connecting them through, of course, their cloud integrations. So you have your username and password for your Nest and your light bulb and your smart lock and your smart camera. You hook them all up to, you log in with all those accounts to Yeti or to IFTTT or Yonomi, and then you can set up all these different actions. If you leave home, then run your routine that would, lock the front door and change the temperature on your thermostat, maybe turn on the security camera, all the different things that you can think of. And you can do that all virtually, but the logic resides in the cloud. It doesn't reside on those devices. So again, you don't have to pay for it. Someone else is paying for those services to operate, but the devices are having to go to the internet and the logic for your home is happening somewhere else. It kind of breaks the model of the smart home that started many years ago before the internet existed, which many of us still feel that smart home devices should communicate inside your home, and the only reason that there should be a connection to the internet or to the cloud is for remote access from a hub and not from all these devices. But these days, it seems we're largely moving towards all these devices connecting to the cloud all the time. I don't like it, I don't agree with it, but it seems to be where we're going. So, don't want to buy a smart home hub, but you want a little bit more access, a little bit more control. Certain products or certain apps like Yonomi let you do even more things with, say, smart lighting than even the manufacturer apps let you do. So kind of interesting there. Take a look at it. I've done interviews with the guys behind Yonomi. Great little company. Again, the app is free, and it's very Yonomi. Out of all four of them, for me, is, as a smart home guy and also looking at it kind of as a consumer, it's the easiest to understand, the easiest to get started. You connect your devices, you create routines, which you can trigger manually via voice, via scheduling, or via geofencing. It's the easiest to understand and set up, and I think they're doing a good job. So those are the apps. Now, say that you've got a smart speaker. Of course, over the past couple of years, as smart speakers entered the market, it made sense that you would want to control your home via voice, right? Just like on the old sci-fi, like Star Trek, computer, do this. Now you can, of course. So that logic also lives in the cloud. It doesn't live necessarily on the smart speaker. So in general, if you're using good old Lady A, Alexa, on your Echo or third-party Echo device, or Google Assistant on your Google Home or third-party Google Assistant device, you're setting up a routine just like you might do so on, Yeti or IFTTT or Yonomi, but you're doing it on there, and then you can trigger those via voice. With the newer versions of the Alexa app and Google Assistant, you can now trigger those routines manually and control those devices manually. The companies have figured out, people want to use this as a real smart, kind of as a virtual smart home hub, so we'll give them that option. Now, briefly, let's talk about HomeKit and Apple, right? Apple doesn't sell a smart home hub. When HomeKit came out, they said, your hub, so to speak, is going to be your iOS device, your iPad or your iPhone. With HomeKit, the communications happen locally. The individual devices do not connect out to the internet unless you're using their own cloud system, because they're HomeKit and they work with other things too. HomeKit devices communicate within your home to your iPhone or your iPad, to your Apple TV, to your HomePod, to your Mac, and it stays that way. The only reason they connect to the cloud, and really they're connecting directly to your iOS device, but only for remote access. And that's being done through, again, the HomeKit hub residing through your Apple TV, iPad, or your HomePod. That's the right security model. What stays in your smart home what happens in your smart home should stay in your smart home. So with something like a Wink or a SmartThings hub, those give you wider access to devices that may be more aesthetically pleasing. They may be from your favorite smart home brand. They might do something additionally. But the benefit is they communicate locally. Z-Wave and Zigbee, those buzzwords, those are dedicated radio protocols that are short range. They're designed for the smart home so that what happens on those devices stays on those devices. The trouble is SmartThings and Wink both kind of operate in the cloud. They're like a little cloudy and they're a little bit local. It's kind of screwy. I was going to mention Iris, but of course they just shut that down from Lowe's. So Wink and SmartThings kind of use the cloud and kind of don't. So even if you connect local sensors like a water leak detector, a smart lock, a Z-Wave smart light bulb, which there are like very few of those, and you connect it directly to the hub, you might still not be able to actually do something with it if your internet goes down because the logic might still reside in the cloud. And to be honest, that's really stupid. I'm sure I just bleeped that out. So SmartThings and Wink, you get more access. You get more ability to do what you want to do because you have more devices that you can do things with. And because they've been around longer than Amazon and Google and Apple, you have a more fulfilling smart home experience. You can do conditional triggers if this event happens, and then also based on this other thing, do this other thing, right? Wink and SmartThings let you do that. SmartThings is going through a transition with new apps from Samsung because Samsung owns them. It's a little bit of a mess right now. The other aspect of SmartThings versus Wink, SmartThings has a programming interface. So if you want to do a lot more with your smart home, there's little apps that have been developed by the community behind SmartThings that let you do a whole lot more than, say, Wink. Wink is the Wink Smart Home Hub lets you do a lot more than, say, Yonomi or Amazon's Alexa Smart Assistant. But if the device doesn't work with Wink, well, you're out of luck. With SmartThings, it's a little bit different. You might be able to get a device driver, so to speak, for a device that doesn't necessarily out of the box work with SmartThings. And there's apps that you can download that extend the out of the box functionality of SmartThings, such as triggers and programming and doing fancy things with your lights and your locks. And I could go on, but that's the basics of it. And again, if they didn't rely somewhat on the cloud, I would say, yeah, they're the most awesome devices out there and you should use them. But people kind of like the cloud. Some people don't like it. So anyways, Wink and SmartThings are physical devices that do control things in your home and do, for some part of their operation, operate locally. And, well, some of it still is in the cloud. So if your internet connection went down, some stuff might not work. So how do you get around that? This is where you have either software running on a server or a computer that's running 24/7 by 365 in your home, or you have a dedicated box, a little piece of hardware that is a smart home hub that does not rely on the cloud. It completely is self-contained, and the devices in your home connect to it. The logic resides on the device. If your internet goes out, your smart home still operates, no matter what. And it has remote access so that you can get to it from outside of your home if you want to, but you don't have to. It also has the ability to connect to services, popular services like good old Alexa. One day we won't have to whisper her name. Lady A, Google Assistant, and for some of them, like the software systems, they can even emulate HomeKit. Pretty cool. So let's go over a couple of these. I'm kind of calling these like the old. We had the new age, the cloud stuff, and here's the old age, the old way of doing things. Even though these devices are still totally valid, being sold by companies, they're still around and happy to sell you a nice smart home hub. A brand new company, actually, Hubitat, I believe it's called the Elevation Hub, was formed by people who were annoyed with SmartThings. Oddly enough, SmartThings was formed by people who were annoyed with the smart home back 5 years ago. It's kind of funny. Anyways, Habitat works locally, does not require the internet to operate. All the functionality is within the hub. I think it's about $100. Has Z-Wave, has Zigbee on board, and connects to Wi-Fi, and will connect to cloud-based thingies if you want it to. But the goal is to control everything and have it stay locally in your home. I haven't reviewed it. I haven't tried it. They've wanted to send me one. I haven't had time to review it, so maybe one day. People do seem to like it, though. That's Habitat. HomeSeer and their Home Troller physical hubs has been around for a number of years, has a great fan base, a great community behind it. Again, it's a physical box. It lives in your home, connects to your network, and continues to run if your internet goes out. Another option, Vera at getvera.com. They have several different smart home controllers. Again, the same thing. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or I think they have Bluetooth, but Bluetooth isn't really utilized for the smart home much outside of HomeKit. Zigbee, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi, and everything lives on the device, and it has cloud connectivity if you want to, but it still runs if your internet goes out. Same thing with ISY, the ISY 994i. This is made by Universal Devices. These devices have been around a long time. Originally just for X10 and Insteon. Now also they work with Z-Wave. Again, all the stuff lives on the controller. It has access to the internet, but it doesn't require the access to the internet. Do I sound like a broken record here? Yeah, this is the concept. All these devices are physical boxes. What happens in your smart home stays in your smart home. If you don't want a physical box and you want even more control, you get software such as OpenHab, which has been around a long time, Home Assistant, which has been around a pretty darn good long time, and something like Indigo, which is a software platform it's a paid software platform. It only works on the Mac. It was for many years considered the gold standard of home automation. This was kind of before OpenHab and Home Assistant had taken hold. Indigo's been around since the early 2000s. It's what I happen to use. It's running on the Mac back there, and I love it. So the question also comes to mind, whether it's software or a physical smart home hub. Beyond the purpose of not needing an internet connection to work, why else would you want it? You know, you can connect the various devices to, say, Wink or SmartThings, right? Z-Wave and Zigbee. So what's lacking from Wink and SmartThings that these devices that I just mentioned have on board that's beneficial to you? The ability to basically do whatever the hell you want. And what I mean is programming. When you really want to get into the smart home, you have to get away from this whole cloud architecture thing. I looked up because I wanted to be very thorough when I was doing my series last year about getting started with the smart home. And also I kind of brushed up once again on my knowledge of SmartThings and their programming interface, because I thought if I really want to make sure I'm giving you the right information, and I want to make sure always, of course, that as a smart home, as a thought leader in the smart home, people look up to me as someone who seems to know a thing or two about this whole smart home thing. I really should be educated. So I thought, within Indigo, which is what I use, shouldn't I be able to do some of these same things on the SmartThings platform? Shouldn't I try to replicate it to say, okay, well, you can do the same thing? So as it turns out, there are a few things that you can't accomplish on SmartThings. Now you'll wonder, well, why? Isn't it fairly flexible and it's got the programming interface? Well, the truth is, just like I talked about on the first part of this Q&A with the security and all the devices, and when I was mentioning how companies get a slice of Amazon's big infrastructure when they want to set up their own little Amazon, their own little private cloud, basically, or their private server, their virtual server. It's the same issue with SmartThings because of that cloud component. That cloud stores some of your stuff, the device stores some of it, some of the processing happens in the clouds, and it's all mixed together. They have to make sure that your SmartThings environment is sandboxed from everyone else. And because of that, all the different little components that you have can't really interact with each other except for the ways that SmartThings defines that they can interact with each other. So you could have two little apps, one that works with your thermostat, one that works with your smart light bulb, and maybe one triggers the other, but not directly, right? They can't like run each other. They can't completely interact with each other. And something else that's missing from SmartThings that people have complained about, and I couldn't make it happen, were variables, global variables. This is a basic thing in programming. Now, within your own little program, they might be available, but they're not available to other programs. Again, because of this security model where everything has to live in its own little world and its own little package. Because you can, on SmartThings, you can write things for yourself, you can download things for yourself, or you can write things and make them available to others as well. So it's kind of this weird model that kind of works for some purposes. But again, if you want ultimate flexibility, ultimate control, and real programming for the smart home, you get one of these boxes, or you get one of these pieces of software that live on your own hardware in your own home. Now, I should say, I didn't mention this, OpenHab and Home Assistant, and there's one or two others out there. Those are all free, open source, cross-platform. Indigo is practically the only piece of software for the smart home that is a paid, it's like $100 or $150, and then they have like an annual fee for updates. But it's two guys, Matt and Jay, and they've been running it since the early 2000s, and it's phenomenal. If you're on the Mac, get Indigo. I think it's phenomenal, and it's a little bit easier than some of the other platforms, because you can, if you don't quite want to jump into coding everything, you don't have to, because you can accomplish a lot through their interface. Anyways, I'll go into a little bit about that more in depth in the upcoming videos. I'll do a little bit of a demo with this variable thing. So here's a question then. Why is it important for you to have ultimate control? Well, the trouble is it's a blank slate. When you get one of these software products, when you get one of these hardware-based hubs that doesn't live in the cloud, it doesn't tell you how to run your smart home. It doesn't tell you what to do. It's a blank slate, which can be confusing to people because they think, well, but I want to do all this cool stuff. How do I do it, right? And you have to kind of look for inspiration from YouTube videos and blogs, websites, forums, and so forth. And you have to have your own imagination to think, well, what do I want to do, right? But I personally have been doing this so long that it's easier for me to get inspired for what I want to accomplish because I know what these systems are capable of. And I've been a programmer, I've been a developer in kind of my previous life. I guess I still am because of the smart home. But I used to develop web apps, I used to develop systems and enterprise IT systems and intranets and whatnot. So I know that all this stuff is so powerful and so flexible if you have the right programming tools at your disposal. And global variables are super helpful for when you have to maintain the state of devices beyond what is supported within the platform itself. Now, I don't want to go too much into a deep dive because I'm going to cover this a little bit more in depth in the documentary series. And some of you are watching this going, oh my God, I don't want to even deal with this. And that's okay. Go with Wink, go with SmartThings. They're a good compromise solution. But my just as many people are suggesting people get into STEM, science, technology, math, and what's the other one? Anyways, you should, if you can learn a little bit of code, if you can learn a little bit of programming, I really highly encourage it because it opens you up to being able to do so much more. And with the smart home, programming is fun because you're making things happen. You're not just like building a web page that has a form or text or maybe some little cute animation thing. These are real devices doing real things, like you develop something that turns a ceiling fan on or turn it off based on temperature. It has a real application for your own life. It's really great. So while I personally can't speak for Home Assistant, OpenHab, ISY, Habitat, and so forth, they each have their own big fan bases. It's hard to run multiple smart home systems in your own home for like demonstration and review purposes. So I've centered my smart home life around around Indigo for the past 8 years, and before that, other systems. So it's hard to just switch. It's hard to just completely move everything to another platform. So I can speak for Indigo, and let me just show you one or two quick things of why this is helpful and why certain things like variables are important that you do not get with something like SmartThings, that you do get with all these other cloud-based systems. This is a list of all of the different routines that I have, and these are very, very, very powerful. You can have again, it's a blank slate. You can do anything you want, whether it's code, whether it's programming, whether it's turning lights or devices on or off, or changing things around. And some of these routines are called by other routines. That's usually what you can't also do within SmartThings. The other thing that you don't get, let me skip over to pages, by the way, real quick. You don't always get custom control panels, right? Little screens that you completely customize. It's possible that you might be able to get that within SmartThings because of the apps, the smart apps, but usually this is something that's difficult to develop. It's not necessarily included. HomeKit on Apple, I mean, certainly not as capable as these platforms I'm talking about, but you do get a little customization of where you want to put scenes and where you want to put devices, but it's not perfect. I have a few different screens. These are called pages, control pages within Indigo. For the alarm clock, the one that I kind of hilariously demonstrated back on the tour video 2 years ago. It's very, very simple. It has an on-off function. It has a time input function and a snooze function. Very simple. I built it for my own needs. It works great. Colored lighting. I built a custom lighting controller that I can't go into the details now without really making this long, but it gives me a custom vocabulary of light colors that are utilized by the system overnight, flipping over variables that control all the kind of colors of the day that run, that allow the lights to change colors based on certain scenes. I can then manually change the colors to any of these palettes. I can have it randomize and set the colors across all the different lights, and it interfaces with custom plugins for both LifeX and Philips Hue, and allows me to have the exact color set for each light that is the same across different light types and light brands. As we all know, red and green and yellows and oranges sometimes don't come across the same way across different lights. Same thing with warm white and cool white. So there's a whole engine behind this. I built this from scratch, not the underlying plugins from scratch, but I built the rest of it from scratch, and I built it and rebuilt it several times over the past couple of years. It's very helpful for manual control and the automation stuff. I'll go into that later on an upcoming video. HVAC and weather. This is a custom control panel that interfaces with Nest. It also interfaces with NOAA weather and provides me with outside temperature information, inside temperature information, and it also has the controls for the ceiling fan, which is controlled automatically based on the temperature that the Nest is reporting, which is right over there, internal. So I also built a hold temperature setting, which Nest does not have. All of the technology for the temperature changes is now handled through Indigo and not through Nest. I've disabled all the automation on Nest because for my purposes, it's not helpful. So, music and security. The security system here is tied in with Whole House Audio. It's tied in with Google Home. It's tied in with iTunes. It's all scripted through Python and through Apple Script. Again, this is something kind of hard to do within SmartThings, probably pretty much impossible. Talking about variables. Let's turn the speakers on, which will initiate a connection outbound from the Mac using a program called Airfoil, scripted through Apple Script. I'm going to turn the speakers on. Did you see the number change? That's volume control. I have volume control of the Google Home speakers. set up through this app. That's a variable. You can actually see the variable in action. You can see there's several of them. Speakers assistant volume, speakers standard volume, speakers volume current, speakers volume override. If you look back at the tour video, you'll see a tiny little segment where I talk about the hallway light and the closet that are tied into one single switch. And depending on whether I double tap it or single tap it, I get hallway light control or I get control of the closet light. But to make that happen, I had to be able to store the current variable or the current level of the hallway light so I could restore it after I double tap it, because it would actually turn it off or turn it on to initiate the trigger for the closet light. I know that sounds really complicated, but if you watch the video, you'll see the light change. So you have to be able to sometimes store the state of a device on top of what your home automation system is tracking. I have some animations that I've built myself that tie in with the low-level APIs and the low-level controls for the LifeX Z and other LifeX bulbs. The low-level APIs let you unlock a ton of stuff, and so there's a whole paint system that I can virtually paint and virtually control. Not virtually, it's all virtual, but I can actually do some paint animations onto that. They run on the same randomization routine as I have for the rest of the colored lights. So this is just, and the main, here's the main, by the way, the main list of all the devices on Indigo that are a combination of Insteon devices, Philips Hue, LifeX, and other products, just to show you. And you can get additional details. I can control the Nest directly from this, because this is the interface to the Nest, which gives me a lot of functionality like the fan automation. Are you confused yet? That's the old way of doing home automation, having your own box, your own hardware, running, your own dedicated device or software running on your PC or Mac or even Raspberry Pi with, say, Home Assistant or OpenHab. It's the ultimate way to go. And I encourage you to try it out sometime. I really, really, really do. It's not as easy as these newer systems, which are built for more of the general public, but you can get so much more done and you can have a lot more fun. I'm going to go into more of that stuff, the fun stuff, and all the customized things that I really haven't gotten to show off on this documentary series that's coming up over the next month. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for all of that new stuff that'll be beautifully done, as you would expect here on Smarter Home Life. So the longest Q&As in history, possibly, on this channel. I hope you got something out of it. New age smart home hubs in the cloud, if you want to keep it simple. Old age smart home hubs in your home that keep everything private and secure and communicate with devices local and in the cloud if you want. The choice is yours. If you want to keep it simple, the cloud is the way to go. If you want ultimate power, the cloud is not the way to go. If you got questions, smarterhomehelp.com. Fill out the form. Set up a consultation. I would love to chat with you. I love chatting with viewers. It's just, if I could do that for my full-time job, that would be super, super, super awesome. Otherwise, I think that's about it. I should stop talking at this point. Thanks for watching. Thanks if you've watched both videos. Congratulations, you've watched like an hour or more of me talking about this stuff. And otherwise, I plan to see you on the next video here on Smarter Home Life. We'll see you then.